Chapter 3 Embers of Resilience. After the laugh subsided, Dave suggested, "Well, let's backtrack. Do you mean in our walk or the conversation?" Irvin inquired, his brow furrowing with curiosity. "In our conversation, of course. Specifically when we discussed how an outsider or friend wished for the person to give up on what you called said flame, because they reconsidered it due to their past experiences. Isn't that just kind of projecting? Aren't you making too much of an assumption?" Dave pondered out loud, his words punctuated by the sound of cars whizzing by and a gentle wind picking up, rustling the nearby leaves. "Yes, it's an assumption, because not everyone is self-centered like that, but most humans are selfish to varying degrees," said Irving. "Everyone can feel a sense of empathy and a desire to help those in poverty. But when it comes time to put their money where their mouth is, many people fall short. This could be because they don't know how to help, don't want to figure it out, or don't want to jump through the necessary hoops. Many won't do their research anyway. Worse still, some have tried to help someone in the past and were taken advantage of, which made them bitter or hesitant to try again. Some people will help others based on moral teachings or religious beliefs. But even those who are stringent in their convictions can backslide," Irving observed, his tone reflective. "They might think, yes, I want to help everybody, but if I help everybody, then I'll be broke, and who will help me? And that's a valid concern. I'm not blaming anyone. It's just how the world is. There are also people who want to get to know you because they see how they can use you. We all use each other in one way or another," Irvin continued, reaching into his pocket to retrieve a coin. "For example, a friend might use another friend as an emotional tissue, venting all their thoughts and frustration. They're there for attention or entertainment. Hell, you could even say we are using each other right now," he added with a wiry smile. "True, but that still doesn't explain why you haven't felt like you've lived well," Dave interjected, his pace slowing down. "Let's continue to walk," Irvin suggested, as they resumed their stroll. They began to take in their surrounding and engage further into conversation. So, as we walk, "Hey, look at the sky. What do you see?" Dave asked, breaking the silence. "Birds chirping, squirrels scurrying, and annoying kids making a lot of noise," Irvin replied. As they walked past a stroller, Irvin pointed to it and asked Dave, "In that stroller, what do you see?" "Well, I see a child," Dave replied. "And what about you, Irving? What do you see?" "I see hope. A child with untapped potential," Irvin answered. "We know nothing about this child, nothing about their parents nor the environment it will grow up in. So why do you say hope?" Dave inquired. "True, we don't know any of those things, but what I do know is all children have potential to become anything. For as cliche as that sounds, but is it free?" Irvin mused. "What do you mean?" Dave asked, intrigued. "Well, what I mean is, does it have the ability to live up, or to even achieve or use said potential?" Irvin explained. "The answer is, well, it depends. For example, it's free to dream, free to imagine anything. In a sense, it's free to think about anything. But is it truly free? No, it depends on its parents and the world around it to protect it, explain things to it. Everything is a potential threat, but, ironically, it depends the most on the child itself. Or should I say, as it gets older, as there are kids who are just born different, or end up good regardless of the negativity around them, and they end up different to their peers despite their environment. Ironically, some of them will be the first to mistake themselves as the norm, wondering how they made it despite everything, yet their peers can't, and feel disappointed and experience the feeling that they do not belong because they don't value the same thing, they don't see the world the same. And this is true within families as well. But before we forget, in another sense, a child and their potential is free. Free to go anywhere, just not yet. It should be nurtured," Irvin concluded. "You sound like a teacher," remarked Dave. So you're saying I'm a part of the system that spouts and encourages false hope and confusion," replied Irvin. "There you go again. But I know what you mean and know," said Dave. "Know 100 times. And besides, Some teachers don't have a choice, and all they can do is the best they can do for each kid. I never said that they didn't. In the end, it's the blind leading the blind in this world that's changing so fast. Who knows what anymore? With beliefs and politics everywhere where they don't belong, sighed Irving. As they continued walking, Irving started to feel tired and weak, his thoughts beginning to jumble. He remembered a time when the sun shone brightly in his beautiful eyes, but that was a long time ago. But something came to mind, said Irving. How about this? About how this ties back to outsiders looking in and warning us about similar mistakes they've made. In life, we encounter various challenges, and these experiences shapes our perspectives. When we see someone facing a situation similar to the one we've experienced, it's natural to want to intervene. We try to help because we believe that our advice might prevent them from making the same mistakes we did. If we know that a particular approach is likely to fail, we might want to spare others the frustration and discouragement by guiding them towards a better path. Yet we must also recognize that where we failed, others might succeed. Each person's path is unique, and what didn't work for us might work for someone else. At the end of the day, a friend can only offer a suggestion and support. The same is true for a teacher or a mentor. They can't make decisions for another person. Ultimately, everyone has to make their own choices and learn from their own experiences, just like words and thoughts alone can't change your predicament. As they strolled along the playground, the lively sound of children at play filled the air. Yells of excitement, joyful screams, and the laughters that echoed across the park. Colorful swings swung back and forth, while kids raced up ladders and slid down the slides with gleeful abandon. Parents lingered nearby, their watchful eyes tracking their children's every move, interjecting occasional words of caution or encouragement. Caught in the midst of this vibrant scene, Irving paused to absorb the sights and sounds around him. The sunlight filtered through the lush greenery of the parks, casting dappled patterns on the ground. He observed the children's carefree antics and the attentive presence of their parents, and a contemplative expression arose across his face. Amidst the cheerful chaos, Irving found himself reflecting out loud. You know, there's something profoundly significant about allowing individuals to chart their own courses in life. He smiled and continued, it's such a delicate balance, offering guidance and support while still respecting their autonomy. Is that from experience? Dave asked. Of course. I'm like many who grew up with a broken scale. Nothing special. And I bet it's true for you too, Irving replied. It's hard being someone who guides someone. It's not like parents or other people in our lives are given a manual on how to handle a whole other person in ways they were probably never treated themselves. Especially those who grew up in dysfunction or suffocating environment. They try something and hope that it works. And if it did work, they may try it with every other sequential kid they have. Or better or worse, that leads to many making poor decisions that affect us years later. Then there are some people who, even if they were given the perfect scenario to grow up in, would still end up ruining their lives somehow. It's a lesson best learned through self-experience. As idiotic as it sounds, each person must navigate their own path. And for some, there is no better teacher than suffering, Irving could conclude. Now, here's a question I asked myself once. If the flames were to go out, is there really nothing left? Is it all for naught? When the fire is gone and all that remains is ash, does that mean everything was in vain? It's easy to get caught up in focusing solely on the outcome we desire to the point where we overlook the opportunities that still exist within what remains. For instance, we establish that ash itself can be useful, even if you don't or haven't reached your intended goal. The remnants of our efforts are still there. These remains persist until they are blown away by time. If you try to restart something in the place where you set that fire, the ash can be part of that new beginning, said Irving. When you're creating a new fire, don't you have to get rid of the ashes? Let me think for a moment, Dove responded. It's figurative, but not necessarily, replied Irving. In a fireplace, you might want to remove the ash, but out in the open, like when you're camping, is different. Ashes has its uses, as it always has. I remember now, said Dave. It's been a while, but ashes is acidic in nature, if I remember right. If it builds up too much, it can damage your fireplace and even inhibit the creation of a new fire. So by following your logic, wouldn't it make sense just to forget it and try something new? Start a new passion, a new journey, rather than dwell on the past. Exactly, said Irving. But what I was getting at is that even though the fire is gone and you're left with ash, you can get rid of it. However, if you do, then you truly wasted your time, as not only did you fail to master that flame, You deemed its leftovers as useless to the point that you got rid of it completely, even though asses have their uses, so why get rid of it? Weren't you the one who was more focused on seeing the brighter side of things? Calling me a pessimist isn't throwing away the fruit of your failed attempt because it was a failure, pretty pessimistic, retorted Irving. That's fine and all, but the average person wouldn't do all that. Hell, the process alone for making good old homemade soap from asses would have people throwing out that ass faster than you could say it, scoffed Dave. It sounds good when you say it, but it sounds just like someone who's holding onto straws instead of doing the right thing and letting old failures go. The right thing? What truly is that? Replied Irving. You could say that normal people don't usually think beyond just getting rid of the ass, and you'd be right. You can say that again, said Dave. How many people are willing to put in that effort after being disappointed? How many would still want to keep on trying anything positive? That's why I said it, Dave. Normally those who succeed aren't necessarily the smartest, but are willing to take risks, whether calculated or not. When their fire goes out, they try again, and even if they don't succeed, they'll find a use for the asses. So, are you saying you're someone who's willing to do that? Dave chuckled. I wish I was, admitted Irving. I often realize that if I could just get out of my head sometimes, maybe I'd be further along the path than I am now. In my dreams, I felt I was that type of person, but in reality, I was one of the many who just stuck their hands into the flame. When it burned, I flinched and never went back. Well, it's not that I never went back, it's that I pretended to keep feeding the flame. Instead of giving it proper fuel, I gave it the toughest branch I could find, and often they were wet branches. It was a miracle any fire remained after that. Dave sighed. Man, you sure are depressing. So what? You know this now. You can change it, right? To that, I'd say, there's a reason why people avoid fire after getting burned, said Irving. It's because they felt pain. And when you feel pain, you learn, or at least your body tries to avoid it. Triggering a survival instinct of pain means move away. So, if we keep with your logic, those that succeed are those who kept themselves in the flame. Do they not feel that they're burning alive? Joked Dave. No. Well, they'd probably smell it and probably see it eventually, but what they'd see and what you'd see would be different. What you see is the trial and tribulation, and what they see is the light. The pain, or well, the outlook of it might be the same, but if they succeed, think of the Greek story of Hercules burning into godhood. But Hercules was a demigod, so when his body burned, his immortal side remained and ascended. The average man is not a demigod, said Dave. Neither is the man within that flame. The same flame that didn't burn out into ashes. The one whose dreams lives on. The one who's close to becoming reality. By definition, that's not average, replied Irving. But he's still a man, nonetheless, said Dave. Irving nodded. Going back to the metaphor, your concerns are true in many cases. For the portions of people who aren't afraid of flames are the same ones who, in their journey and their hopes for a strong flame, don't realize they're being burned alive by the very flames they're nurturing, and then what's left of them is a husk. A husk, Dave questioned. Wouldn't it just be a burnt corpse? Well, we're talking metaphorically, like we said. Life's a gamble, Irving replied. But speaking of burning, why don't we head to that cafe and get some lunch? Isn't it breakfast? Said Dave. Well, technically yes, since we didn't eat after losing track of time, but it's technically lunch, said Irving. So the two of them went on and walked to a local cafe. Particularly popular, but it was known for serving great food, making it a hidden gem in the neighborhood. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods greeted them as they entered, and the warm, cozy atmosphere was a welcome respite from their earlier walk. Irving ordered a steaming cup of coffee, accompanied by a hearty breakfast of bacon, eggs, cheese, and a stack of fluffy pancakes. Dave opted for a flakier fare, choosing buttery croissants filled with bacon and savory sausages. The two friends found a quiet corner by the window where they could watch the world go by. At Dave's behest, they changed the subject of their conversation to avoid spoiling their meal with heavy topics. They chatted about life, their struggles, the lessons they learned along the way, and even touched on some sports. The cafe's soft background music and the gentle hum of other patrons' conversation created a soothing backdrop to their discussion. Their meal was delicious, the perfect comfort food for such a reflective conversation. After finishing their meal, they lingered a while longer, savoring the last sip of their coffee. Eventually, it was time to part ways. I know you're dying to get back home, so I won't hold you up any longer, Dave said. It's alright. I quite enjoyed today, Irvin replied. Well, since you said that, not me. That means we're booked for next week too, Dave declared with a grin. When did I say that? Protesting Irvin. Just now, Dave smiled. Alright, whatever you say, Irvin replied, a little dejected. Don't be like that. Besides, we can continue this conversation another time. Keep safe, said Dave. They stood up, exchanged a firm handshake, and promised to meet again soon. As they stepped out of the caf, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the streets. They walked together for a few more blocks before finally heading in opposite directions, each lost in their own thoughts about the day conversation. They didn't know when they would see each other next, but they both felt a sense of renewal and understanding from their talk. And above, clouds started to form as the rain started to pour, and even the sound of early thunder. Regardless of all this, they braced themselves for whatever laid ahead, carrying with them the warmth of their friendship and insight they had shared over a simple meal in a quiet caf.